All right, so Google, right. They're kind of killing it in the AI game.
Yeah, they've got this whole machine learning playbook.
Oh,
Think
see.
of it like their secret recipe book, but for AI.
And we're going to like steal all their
Yeah,
recipes.
steal. More like learn from the best.
Right. So part one, before you even write code. I love this. It's like hold your horses with all the fancy algorithms.
It's so true. Everyone wants to jump into the deep end, but Google's like, nah, chill out. Sometimes you just got to nail the basics first.
So what's that mean? Don't overthink it. Give me a real world example.
Okay, imagine you're building like an app store. It's tempting to create this crazy complex algorithm to rank all the apps,
Yeah.
but Google says start simple, just use download rate.
So basic, but it works.
Exactly. While you're gathering data, and honestly, while you're making sure your infrastructure can even handle a real AI,
They are really big on getting that foundation right. The data pipelines, the whole 9 yards.
yeah, they're obsessed. It's like you don't build a house starting with the roof, right? You got to get the foundation strong.
Makes sense. Okay. And on top of that solid foundation, they're also obsessed with metrics. It's almost like they're measuring everything.
You know how detectives gather every little clue, even if they don't know what it means yet?
Yeah,
It's like that. Track everything. You never know what might be important later.
makes sense. It's better to have too much data than not enough. So we've got our data, we're tracking everything. What about the first model? Keep it simple, you said.
More like keep it boring. Linear regression. Nothing fancy. At this stage, it's about establishing a baseline, not winning awards for the most complex algorithm.
Right. Get that solid starting point.
Yeah.
But then we got to make sure it actually works, right? Testing, testing, testing.
Exactly. Google treats their machine learning pipeline like a high security system because it basically is. Test every step of the way. How the data's prepped, how the model learns, how it acts in the real world.
Because that's where things can get messy, right?
Yeah.
When you've got data flowing between systems.
Exactly. They call it training serving skew. It's when your model does amazing in training but then completely bombs in the real world.
Ouch.
Yeah.
Like stage fright.
Worse. Like imagine acing all your practice exams but then blanking on the real deal.
So how do we avoid that disaster?
Google has this clever trick. They give their models a little sneak peek at the real-world data beforehand. Not enough to cheat, but just enough to get comfortable.
That's smart. Okay, so before we even think about coding, it seems like Google's biggest piece of advice is,
Don't overthink it. Build a strong foundation, test like crazy, and be prepared to iterate, iterate, iterate. So we've got our data pipeline all set up, rock solid foundation, remember. Now we got to figure out what we're actually feeding into our machine learning model.
the ingredients, right?
Okay.
But for AI, those ingredients are features.
You got it. Feature engineering. It's where the magic happens. Turning raw data into something our model can actually understand and learn from.
Okay, but like, where do we even start? It seems kind of overwhelming, you know?
Google says start with what you already know. What rules of thumb are you using right now? What patterns have you noticed?
So like, if I'm building a spam filter, I already know those emails with urgent free offer in the subject line are usually spam.
Exactly. That's valuable information. Turn those existing heuristics into features for your model. Give it a head start.
So instead of learning everything from scratch, it can use our existing knowledge as a springboard.
You got it. Then get creative. Look for those really specific features, even if they only apply to a small part of your data.
Wait, really? Even if a feature only applies to like 1% of my users, it can still be useful.
Trust me on this. Let's say you're building a movie recommendation system. You notice that people who watch this really obscure documentary about, I don't know, the history of cheesemaking,
Okay, very specific example, but go on.
they also tend to love these quirky indie films. It's a small overlap, but it's there.
And that little detail can make a big difference in recommending the right movie.
Huge. It's about finding those hidden patterns that lead to those super personalized recommendations. And Google's great at that. They do these simple transformations on their features to create even more features.
Transformations, like what?
Like taking a continuous feature like age and breaking it down into categories. Instead of feeding the model the raw age, give it categories like under 18, 1824, and so on.
So it's more digestible for the model that way.
Exactly. Or combining features. Like if you have a feature for a user's location and another for their favorite music genre, you can combine those to understand the musical preferences of people in that location, like country music lovers in Nashville.
Interesting. So it's all about getting creative with how we slice and dice the data.
Uh,
But hold on.
Yeah?
Can't we just throw a ton of features at the model and let it figure it out?
You'd think though, but it's not always about quantity. It's about having enough data to support all those features.
Because if you overload it with too much information, it'll just get confused.
Exactly. Think of it like this. You wouldn't try to teach a toddler advanced calculus, right? They need the foundational knowledge first.
Okay, that makes sense. So more data means we can have more complex features.
Exactly. But even with a ton of data, Google's still careful about using features generated by external systems, like those unsupervised clustering algorithms.
I'll be honest, I have no idea what that means, but it sounds fancy.
It is fancy, but those systems, they have their own goals, right? Which might not always align with yours.
Like asking your friend to pick out your outfit.
Yeah,
Their style might be different.
you got it. You want to be in control of your model's style. So Google prefers to stick with features that are directly observed or reported. Hard facts, basically.
Okay, so less speculation, more concrete evidence. Makes sense. But we can't forget about the human touch, right? Even Google admits that we still need humans in the loop.
100%. Analyze your models, see where they're struggling, and use that knowledge to inform your feature engineering. It's a constant conversation between human insight and machine learning.
Finding that sweet spot between human intuition and AI power. I like it. So we've got our killer features, rock-solid infrastructure, but what happens when things start to slow down?
You hit a plateau. That initial honeymoon phase of growth kind of fizzles out.
Yeah, like you're climbing Mount Everest and suddenly the peak seems like miles further away.
It's Google's phase 3, the land of diminishing returns.
So how do we even know we're in phase 3? What are the warning signs?
Well, your metrics will tell you. Growth slows down, you hit a wall. Sometimes optimizing for one metric can actually hurt another.
Ugh, yeah. It's like trying to juggle chainsaws. Something's got to give.
That's when you got to ask yourself, are my ML objectives still aligned with my overall product goals?
Because sometimes we get so caught up in the numbers, we lose sight of the bigger picture.
Exactly. The playbook is a great example. Imagine you're improving an app store's recommendations. Your goal, more app installs.
Makes sense. Get those downloads.
Right. So you add this new feature, boom, install skyrocket, you're feeling good.
High fives all around.
But then
Yeah.
you notice something weird. The number of daily active users is actually down.
Wait, what? People are installing the app but not using it?
It's like buying a flashy pair of shoes that look great but kill your feet. You wear them once, then they sit in your closet.
Okay, ouch. So how do we avoid those painful shoe purchases, metaphorically speaking?
Focus on the long game, not just the quick wins. Google stresses that launch decisions should be based on long-term product health.
Not just chasing that sugar rush of immediate gratification.
Exactly. Now, in terms of feature engineering, phase 3 is when you need to get even more creative. It's not just about tweaking existing features. It's about finding entirely new sources of information.
So instead of just rearranging the furniture, we're knocking down walls, expanding the whole house.
Love that analogy. This could mean incorporating user browsing history, data from other platforms, even public knowledge bases.
So like if I'm building a music app, instead of just looking at what a user listens to, I should also consider their concert tickets, their social media, maybe even those online music forums they obsess over.
Exactly. Paint a richer picture of the user. More data, more insights, better personalization.
But even with all this amazing tech, we can't forget about the humans, right?
Never. Google gets it. They emphasize human judgment every step of the way.
It's like AI can help us bake the cake, but humans still need to taste the batter, you know?
Perfect analogy. We need that human touch to make sure our systems are not just effective, but also, humane. Humans are still the ultimate judges of user satisfaction.
So it's not about humans versus machines. It's about humans and machines working together.
Exactly. That's the beauty of Google's approach. It's a partnership. And that's a wrap on our deep dive into Google's machine learning playbook.
We've covered a lot of ground today. Starting simple, building that solid foundation, getting creative with features, and never underestimating the power of human insight.
And remember, building effective ML systems isn't just about technical skills. It's about understanding people, what makes them tick, what they want, what makes their lives better.
So it's not just about building smart machines. It's about building a smarter future together. And on that note, we'll catch you next time for another deep dive.